The massive Zarkuli warship cast a shadow over the Pentagon that seemed to stretch for miles. Its crystalline surface refracted sunlight in mesmerizing patterns, a display of technological superiority as intentional as it was effective. Inside the Joint Chiefs Situation Room, Colonel Sarah Chen stared at the main screen, her expression unchanged even as the alien ship's sensors swept over the building for the 100th time. "They're scanning our weapons again," Technical Director Marcus Wong reported, his fingers dancing over his tablet. "Just like before, they're focusing on our missile silos, air bases, and tank divisions." "Let them look," Chen replied, her eyes fixed on the data streaming across her own screen. For 3 days since the Zarkuli's arrival, they'd done nothing but scan, analyze, and occasionally broadcast messages of their overwhelming superiority. "They're missing something." The room's lighting dimmed as another transmission began. Supreme Commander Vexthal's hologram materialized in the center of the room, its crystalline form towering over the assembled human leaders. Like all Zarkuli, his transparent, faceted body structure gave him the appearance of a sentient diamond, internal lights pulsing with each word. "We have completed our analysis of your military capabilities," Vexthal announced, his tone carrying the same patronizing amusement it had since first contact. "Your species continues to rely on primitive kinetic weapons and crude explosive devices. Even your most advanced missiles would be useless against our lowest-grade defensive shields." Chen watched as several of the Joint Chiefs shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Zarkuli weren't wrong. Initial simulations showed their shield technology could indeed repel everything from rifle rounds to nuclear warheads. But something about their defensive systems had been nagging at her since the first scans came in. "We offer you one final opportunity to submit to Zarkuli protection," Vexthal continued. "Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate the true gap between our civilizations." As the generals debated their response, Chen turned to Wong. "Pull up the shield harmonics analysis again. Focus on the moments when they're transitioning between defensive states." Wong nodded, bringing up a complex series of waveforms. "See these patterns? Their shields don't maintain consistent coverage. They pulse, probably to conserve energy." "Not just that," Chen said, excitement creeping into her voice. "Look at the frequency response when they're deflecting different types of attacks. There's a clear correlation between shield strength and the type of threat they're expecting." She stood up, interrupting the ongoing discussion. "Supreme Commander Vexthal, before we respond to your offer, I have a question about your shield technology. Would you say it's fully automated, capable of responding to any threat without manual adjustment?" The alien commander's internal lights flickered in what they'd learned to recognize as amusement. "Our defensive systems are beyond your comprehension, human. They adapt instantly to any weapon you could possibly deploy." "That's what I thought," Chen said, quickly typing commands into her terminal. "You've designed them to be perfect at stopping what you expect to face. But tell me, when was the last time the Zarkuli encountered a species that still used mechanical spring-powered weapons?" Vexthal's crystalline form stiffened slightly. "Such primitive technology is beneath our notice. Beneath your notice, and beneath your shield's detection threshold." Chen turned to the Joint Chiefs. "Their scanning patterns make sense now. They're looking for energy signatures, radiation, explosive compounds. Their entire defensive doctrine is built around stopping modern weapons. But what if we went older? Much older?" Wong's eyes widened as he caught on. "The M1 Abrams. Its main gun, it's essentially a giant spring-loaded system. Pure kinetic energy, minimal electronic signature." "Precisely," Chen said, pulling up technical specifications. "And with some modifications to the ammunition and firing mechanism, we might be able to." "This discussion is pointless," Vexthal interrupted, but there was a new edge to his voice. "You have 24 hours to submit to our authority, or we will begin removing your military assets by force." The hologram vanished. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs leaned forward. "Colonel Chen, You have 5 minutes to convince me we haven't just signed our own death warrant. Chen's fingers flew across her keyboard, bringing up schematics of the M1 Abrams tank alongside the shield analysis data. Sir, the Tsar Kelly have built their entire defensive strategy around stopping what they consider to be threats. Energy weapons, explosives, even our most advanced kinetic weapons all operate within specific parameters their shields are designed to counter. But they've left a gap, a massive one, by dismissing anything they consider obsolete. She highlighted several sections of data. Their shields pulse at regular intervals, creating microsecond gaps in coverage. These gaps are irrelevant against the weapons they're expecting, but a properly timed, purely mechanical kinetic strike, it would pass right through like threading a needle. How many tanks would we need to modify? The chairman asked. We start with one, Chen replied. One tank, one shot, to prove the concept. If it works, she smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. Well, then we show them exactly how dangerous primitive technology can be in the hands of those they've underestimated. As the room erupted into activity, Chen caught Wang's eye. They both knew that the next 24 hours would determine humanity's fate. But for the first time since the massive alien ships appeared in Earth's skies, they had something the Zarkali didn't, a plan they'd never see coming. Aberdeen Proving Ground hummed with unprecedented activity in the pre-dawn hours. Master Sergeant Jack Rivera stood beside the modified M1 Abrams tank, watching as engineers made final adjustments to its main gun. The tank's usual olive-drab finish had been replaced with a dark, radar-absorbing coating that seemed to drink in the floodlights. We've got 18 hours left, Wang announced, emerging from under the tank's massive chassis. Grease stained his once pristine dress shirt, his tablet forgotten in the hands-on work of the past several hours. The modifications to the firing mechanism are complete, but we still need to test the new ammunition. Colonel Chen approached, accompanied by a tall woman with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a tight bun. Master Sergeant, meet Dr. Diana Harrison. She's our top ballistics expert, and she's got some ideas about maximizing our impact potential. Harrison didn't waste time with pleasantries. The Zarkali shields operate on a quantum field principle, she explained, pulling up complex equations on her tablet. They're designed to detect incoming threats and generate a counter frequency that disperses the energy. But their detection systems have a lower threshold. Anything moving too slowly or with too simple a mechanical signature gets ignored. Rivera nodded slowly. Like how we don't notice gradual temperature changes until they pass a certain point. Exactly, Harrison smiled. We're going to exploit that blind spot. These new rounds we've developed. She held up what looked like an oversized artillery shell, are mechanically simple. No explosive payload, no electronic signature. Just carefully calculated mass and velocity with a specially designed impact profile. Wang jumped in. The real trick is timing. We've analyzed their shield pulses down to the microsecond. Each pulse has a pattern, like a heartbeat. We've modified the tank's firing system to sync with that pattern. Chen gestured to the tank's interior. Show them, Marcus. Inside the gunner's station, Wang pointed to a new display mounted above the main targeting system. This tracks the enemy shield pulses in real time. When the indicators align, that's your window. The mechanical firing delay has been precisely calibrated. Pull the trigger when you see green, and the round will thread the needle between pulses. Rivera climbed into the gunner's seat, familiarizing himself with the new setup. How big is our window? 3 milliseconds, Harrison replied. Miss it, and the round hits their shields at full strength. And if we time it right. Chen's expression hardened. Then we prove they're not invincible. The next few hours were a blur of calculations, adjustments, and test fires. They used salvaged Zarkali shield generators from downed scout ships to verify their theory. The first few shots were deflected, but with each attempt, they refined their timing. On the 7th try, Rivera watched the indicators align, squeezed the trigger, and felt the familiar recoil of the main gun. The test shield flickered and died, a perfect hole punched through its generator. "It works," Wong breathed, staring at the data readings. "It actually works." But their celebration was cut short by distant explosions. The Tsar Kelly had begun their assault early, their massive ships descending on major military installations worldwide. "They're not waiting for their deadline," Chen announced, already issuing orders through her command tablet. "They must have detected our weapons tests." "Rivera, Wong, you're with me. Dr. Harrison, get that firing solution uploaded to every compatible tank in our arsenal." As they rushed to battle stations, Rivera caught glimpses of the alien ships through the compound's windows. Their crystalline surfaces now pulsed with angry red energy, weapons charging. "They're scared," Chen said, noting his gaze. "They've realized we might have found a way through their defenses, so they're trying to stop us before we can prove it." "Let them try," Rivera replied, patting the tank's armor. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." Within minutes, the modified Abrams roared to life, its treads crushing gravel as it moved into position. Above them, Tsar Kelly fighter craft screamed through the sky, their energy weapons painting the ground with deadly light. Chen's voice crackled over the radio. "All units, Operation Lockpick is now in effect. Remember your training. Time your shots. Show them what humanity's primitive weapons can do." As Rivera settled into the gunner's position, watching the shield pulse indicators begin their dance, he allowed himself a grim smile. The Tsar Kelly thought they had humanity outmatched in every way. They were about to learn that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most elegant and the most deadly. The battle for Aberdeen Proving Ground was about to begin, and with it, humanity's first real chance to strike back against their would-be conquerors. All they needed was perfect timing, a steady hand, and the element of surprise that came from being desperately underestimated. The morning sky over Aberdeen blazed with alien weapons fire as Rivera guided the modified Abrams into position. Through his viewport, he watched Tsar Kelly hover tanks glide between burning buildings, their crystalline hulls gleaming with shield energy. "Multiple targets, 2 o'clock, Wong reported from his station, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Their formation suggests they don't consider us a serious threat." Colonel Chen's voice crackled through the command channel. "Remember, we only get one shot at surprising them. Make it count." Rivera adjusted his targeting display, watching the shield pulse indicators dance across his screen. The nearest Tsar Kelly tank floated forward, its energy cannons charging with an ominous hum. The alien vehicle was beautiful in its way, all smooth lines and transparent crystal, more like a work of art than a war machine. "Target locked," Rivera announced. "Shield pulse synchronization in 3, 2, 1. The indicators aligned. Rivera squeezed the trigger. The Abrams shuddered as its main gun fired. Through the targeting scope, Rivera watched the specially designed round streak toward the alien tank. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the round passed through the shield gap, striking the crystalline hull. The Tsar Kelly tank shattered like glass, its pieces scattering across the battlefield. Silence fell across the command channel. Then Wong's voice. "Direct hit. Shield penetration confirmed." The remaining Tsar Kelly tanks froze in place, their commanders clearly stunned by the destruction of their supposedly invincible vehicle. Chen seized the moment. "All units, execute Operation Thunderstrike. Fire at will." Across the battlefield, dozens of modified Abrams tanks emerged from concealed positions. Dr. Harrison's firing solutions had been distributed to every crew, and they'd spent the night practicing the timing. Now that practice paid off. The morning air filled with the thunder of tank guns. Alien shields flickered uselessly as perfectly timed rounds passed through their pulse gaps. Tsar Kelly vehicles exploded one after another, their crystalline debris carpeting the ground like diamond dust. "They're pulling back," Wong reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "Their formation is breaking." But the Tsar Kelly weren't retreating. Their remaining tanks regrouped, adopting new defensive positions. The aliens were adapting, learning. They're modifying their shield pulse patterns, Chen warned. Harrison, we need new timing calculations. Rivera watched as the shield indicators on his display began changing, the familiar rhythm replaced by chaotic fluctuations. But Dr. Harrison's voice cut through the chaos. Uploading new parameters now. Their shields can only change so much without compromising basic functionality. We've got them. The battle resumed with renewed intensity. The Tsar Kelly brought in reinforcements, including their dreaded heavy decimators, massive hover tanks that could level city blocks. But size made them slower, their shield systems more predictable. Rivera's crew alone claimed 3 of them. As the sun climbed higher, the tide of battle shifted decisively. The Zarkali's initial shock had turned to frustration, then to fear. Their perfect formations dissolved into desperate individual actions. Some even tried to lower their shields completely, hoping speed alone would protect them. It didn't. Command, this is Chen. Aberdeen proving ground is secure. I repeat, Aberdeen is secure. Cheers erupted across the command channel, but Rivera kept his focus on his targeting display. Experience had taught him that victories could be fragile things. He was right. High above the battlefield, the massive Zarkeli command ship began to move. Its crystalline surface rippled with energy as weapon ports opened along its hull. They're charging something big, Wang reported, his instruments struggling to analyze the energy buildup. Whatever it is, it's like nothing we've seen before. Chen's voice remained calm. All units, maintain position. This isn't over. The command ship's attack, when it came, wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of weapon fire, it released a cascade of energy that washed over the battlefield like a tide. Where it passed, human electronics sputtered and died. EMP, Wang shouted as his screens went dark. They're trying to knock out our targeting systems. But Rivera was already switching to the mechanical backup sites, another primitive system the Zarkeli had dismissed. We don't need computers to hit them, he said, rotating the turret manually. Not anymore. Through his sight, he watched the command ship descend, its captain clearly believing the human tanks had been neutralized. Rivera allowed himself a small smile as he lined up his shot. Sometimes, he muttered, quoting an old instructor, the simplest solution is the best solution. The Abrams main gun roared one more time. Above the battlefield, the massive command ship shields flickered, failed, and a new star bloomed in the morning sky. Operation Thunderstrike had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. But as Rivera watched the remaining Zarkeli forces retreat in disarray, he knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back, with new tactics and countermeasures. But humanity would be ready. They'd proven that even the most advanced technology could be defeated by ingenuity, determination, and the willingness to embrace solutions that others had dismissed as obsolete. Chen's voice came over the backup radio. All units, prepare for enemy counterattack. This was just the first round. But now they know, Earth isn't as defenseless as they thought. The Zarkeli response came 3 days after their defeat at Aberdeen. Their new Supreme Commander, Kirval, addressed the United Nations not as a hologram, but as a full materialized presence, his crystalline form towering over the General Assembly. You believe you have discovered our weakness, his voice resonated through the chamber. But you have merely revealed your own barbarity. To resort to such primitive methods, it proves why species like yours require guidance. In the Pentagon's underground command center, Colonel Chen watched the transmission alongside military leaders from 24 nations. The room had been hardened against Zarkeli scanning technology, allowing them to plan without alien oversight. They're bringing in their elite forces, General Zhang of the Chinese military stated, pointing to orbital tracking data. Warships unlike anything we've seen in the first wave. The screen showed massive crystalline vessels entering Earth's atmosphere, their designs radically different from the earlier invaders. These ships were angular, aggressive, with multiple layers of shifting shields that pulsed in random patterns. They've adapted, Wang confirmed, analyzing the sensor data. The shield frequencies are randomized. Our current timing solutions won't work. Dr. Harrison stepped forward, her silver-streaked hair now completely white from stress and sleepless nights. But they've made a crucial mistake. In strengthening their shields, they've had to sacrifice mobility. These new ships are slower and more predictable in their movement. The room's main display showed Zarkeli forces descending on major cities worldwide. But unlike their first assault, they weren't attacking. Instead, they formed perfect geometric formations in the sky, creating massive energy fields that cut off entire regions from the outside world. They're isolating us, Chen realized, cutting Earth into manageable segments. They plan to deal with each resistance pocket separately. Master Sergeant Rivera, recently promoted after Aberdeen, studied the tactical displays. We got maybe 48 hours before those energy fields are fully operational. After that, we won't be able to coordinate between regions. Chen turned to the assembled leaders. Then we have 48 hours to distribute everything we've learned. Every tank modification, every firing solution, every tactic that worked at Aberdeen needs to be shared globally. The next 2 days became a blur of activity. Military bases worldwide worked around the clock, modifying their armor divisions. The original M1 Abrams modifications were adapted for other tank models. Chinese Type 99s, Russian T-14s, British Challengers, and more. But the Zarkeli weren't idle. Their new weapons platforms demonstrated devastating effectiveness against unmodified human forces. Cities that tried to resist with conventional weapons were swiftly overwhelmed. They're learning from each defeat, Wang observed, watching footage of a failed attack in Europe. Each time we succeed, they adjust their tactics. Chen nodded grimly, which means we need to keep changing ours. Rivera, show them what we've been working on. Rivera brought up schematics of a modified tank round. We've been studying their crystal technology. These new shells don't just penetrate shields, they shatter the crystalline structures of their ships on impact, like using the right frequency to break a wine glass. Dr. Harrison added, and we found ways to network our tanks, synchronizing their fire through mechanical linkages rather than vulnerable electronic systems. When multiple rounds hit their shields at precisely the same moment, the shields collapse completely, Chen finished. But we'll only get one chance to surprise them with this. We need every resistance cell worldwide to strike simultaneously, just before those energy fields are complete. The plan was audacious, perhaps impossible, coordinating a global counterstrike with minimal electronic communications against an enemy that controlled the skies. But they had no choice. As the deadline approached, Chen addressed the combined tank crews one final time. The Zarkeli think they understand us now. They believe they've countered our primitive tactics. Let's show them that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt, to innovate, to find new solutions when the old ones fail. The counterattack would begin at dawn. Across the globe, modified tanks moved into position, their crews ready for what could be humanity's last coordinated strike against their would-be conquerors. In his command tank, Rivera watched the sky darken with crystalline ships. They still think they're hunting prey, he said quietly. Time to remind them that sometimes the prey hunts back. Chen's voice crackled over the secure channel. All units, prepare for Operation Shatterpoint. Remember your training. Remember Aberdeen. And remember, Earth is our home, not their conquest. Above them, the Zarkeli energy fields began their final convergence, unaware that beneath them, humanity was about to prove once again that technological superiority meant nothing without the wisdom to use it properly. Dawn broke over a world poised on the edge. The Zarkeli energy fields hung like crystalline curtains in the sky, mere minutes from completion. In command centers hidden beneath the Earth's surface, thousands of tank crews waited for the signal. Colonel Chen stood in the Pentagon's hardened command room, watching the final pieces fall into place. Status report. All regions confirm ready, Wang replied, his voice tense. Mechanical synchronization systems are in place. Dr. Harrison's resonance calculations are distributed. Through encrypted channels came confirmation from resistance cells worldwide. From the steppes of Russia to the Australian outback, modified tanks sat in carefully planned positions, their crews ready. The Zarkali's attempt to isolate Earth's defenders had ironically given them the perfect opportunity. Every major alien force was now committed to maintaining the energy fields. Supreme Commander Kirvol's transmission cut through all frequencies. Your time has expired. The segregation is complete. Prepare for systematic pacification. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Now, across the globe, thousands of tanks fired simultaneously. Their modified rounds, precisely timed and synchronized through mechanical means, struck the Zarkali shields at exactly the same moment. The effect was catastrophic. The alien shields didn't just fail, they shattered. The crystalline resonance of the new ammunition set up harmonic vibrations through their entire defense network. Ship after ship began to crack, their once perfect structures developing spiderweb patterns of destruction. Direct hits confirmed worldwide, Wang reported, his eyes wide as data poured in. Their shield network is collapsing. But the Zarkali weren't finished. From their command ships emerged new weapons, massive crystalline constructs that began absorbing the energy from their failing shields, redirecting it into devastating beams. Second wave, commence fire, Chen ordered. This time, the tanks fired in rolling sequences, their shots creating complex interference patterns in the aliens' energy fields. Dr. Harrison's voice cut through the chaos. It's working. The resonance is spreading through their entire command structure. In orbit, the massive Zarkali flagship began to descend, its surface writhing with contained energy. Supreme Commander Kirvol's voice boomed across all frequencies. Enough. You force us to. His transmission cut off as Rivera's tank squadron, hidden in the mountains, executed a perfectly timed volley. The flagship's shields fluctuated, failed, and the mighty vessel began to break apart. All units pressed the advantage, Chen commanded. Don't let them regroup. The next hour was chaos. Across the planet, human forces emerged from hiding, their modified weapons wreaking havoc on the previously invincible Zarkali fleet. The aliens' attempts to adapt came too late. Their complex shield modifications, designed to counter humanity's primitive weapons, had made their entire network vulnerable to the synchronized assault. Finally, from the remaining Zarkali ships came a signal unlike any before, not a demand or a threat, but a request for parley. A new voice, identified as Sub-Commander Texra, addressed the human forces. We recognize your capability. Never has the Empire encountered a species that turned our own sophistication against us. We request dialogue. In the Pentagon Command Center, Chen exchanged looks with her team. Wang nodded slowly. Rivera's voice came over the comm. They're standing down worldwide, Colonel. Their weapons are powering down. Chen stepped forward to respond, but Dr. Harrison raised her hand. Let me speak to them. Scientist to scientist. She addressed the Zarkali. Your technology is remarkable. But you forgot something fundamental. Complexity isn't always the answer. Sometimes the simplest solution, executed perfectly, is the most powerful force in the universe. There was a long pause before Texra responded. We have much to learn from each other, it seems. The Empire has never been forced to consider such possibilities. In the hours that followed, the skies cleared of crystalline ships. The Zarkali didn't retreat entirely. Instead, they requested to establish diplomatic relations. Their defeat had taught them something their centuries of technological supremacy hadn't: respect. Later, as Chen watched the first human Zarkali diplomatic meeting begin, Wang approached her. Did you ever think we'd win like this, using technology they considered obsolete? Chen shook her head. We didn't win because our weapons were better or worse than theirs. We won because we never stopped thinking, never stopped adapting. They thought technological superiority meant they didn't need to innovate anymore. The ultimate irony, Rivera added, joining them. Their greatest weakness wasn't their shields or their crystals. It was their certainty that they couldn't be beaten. Above them, the sun set on a changed world. Humanity had proven itself not just to the Zarkali, but to the galaxy at large. They had shown that true strength lies not in the sophistication of one's weapons, but in the ingenuity to use what one has in ways never before imagined. And somewhere in orbit, the first joint human-Zarkali research team was beginning its work, exploring how to combine the best of both worlds, Earth's innovative spirit with the Empire's advanced technology. The future, it seemed, would be built not on conquest, but on cooperation born of mutual respect.